Lehman Brothers was founded by Henry Lehman in 1850, originally opened as a dry goods store and eventually incorporated as a global investment bank. Despite a hostile economic environment, Lehman survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars and a capital shortage, and finally grew into an international powerhouse, becoming one of the world's largest investment banks. Lehman Brothers maintained a leadership position in equity and fixed income trading and investment banking. However, as the credit crisis evolved in 2007, Lehman's stock fell sharply in a matter of time. Lehman underwrote huge mortgage-backed securities, accumulating $85 billion portfolio, which was 4 times its shareholders' equity. Lehman Brothers stock then rebounded. However, the firm did not take this opportunity to trim its massive mortgage portfolio, and over the years, Lehman's stock fell by 77%.
Finally, on the 15th of September 2008, Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy with $639 billion in asset and $609 billion in debt.
Through their choice in accounting methods, Lehman Brothers concealed financial measures and communicated false information. Lehman Brothers was able to maintain their appearance in the investment community of underdog success. The method favoured by Lehman Brothers management allowed them to conceal distress by an accounting method known by insiders as Repo 105. Repo 105 was a type of repurchase agreement by which the collateral was equal to at least 105% of the loan. Repo 105 was specifically used by Lehman Brothers to raise cash by selling assets to a company called Hudson Castle, which appeared to be independent but was operated by Lehman Brothers executives. Effectively, they were selling assets to themselves and repurchasing them after the reporting period concluded in order to recognise cash on the balance sheet and in turn increase the liquidity. Instead of reporting these properties as non-liquid assets, Repo 105 managed to remove $50 billion worth of non-liquid assets from the balance sheet. This created false consumer and investment confidence as they were seen to have higher liquidity. Their going concern was questionable, as liquidity was ultimately the heart of Lehman Brothers' activity as a company, without which they would quite possibly not have been seen as a going concern, as they wouldn't have been able to gain finances to meet obligations as and when they fall due. Management are most qualified to make decisions affecting companies' going concern, and ultimately the adoption of Repo 105 and sale of assets to themselves was a way of hiding any material indicators that they may not have been a going concern in the foreseeable future.
It was not only the role of auditor but that of management to ensure that effective communication and balance of interests are met. In the case of Lehman Brothers, on countless occasions, they had the opportunity to disclose the concerns about the bank's financial health and involvement in risky loans, but they did not. Their failure to disclose their interest in Hudson Castles manipulated not only the financials but the beliefs of stakeholders around the health of Lehman Brothers, resulting in an illusion of stability and success. This fall was so much greater as stakeholders were led to believe one thing and were eventually shown another when the business was unable to meet their obligations and were eventually found bankrupt. During the bankruptcy investigation, the company's global finance controller admitted that there was no substance to Repo 105 transactions, illustrating the inability of management in meeting their corporate governance.
Although management are best suited to measure going concern, if an auditor is fully aware of material uncertainty, they are completely qualified to make a judgment on management's assessments. In the case of Lehman Brothers, the auditor employed was Ernst & Young. EY employees should be capable of raising distresses in regards to going concern assessments and ultimately Lehman Brothers' questionable practices. EY was grossly negligent in their audit capacity as they neither recognised nor disclosed the dealings subsequent to the collapse of Lehman Brothers. This involved failure to recognise illegitimate assets or liquidity to key stakeholders and, as a result, failure to functionally operate in their capacity as auditors. Even after explicit questioning, EY failed to alert either internal or external parties to the manipulation that was taking place. If EY had met their requirements as auditors and questioned accounts thoroughly for material misstatement, they may have been able to expose the unethical practices of Lehman Brothers and create greater value for the company and its stakeholders. As a result of poor audit from EY, Lehman Brothers continued to operate in a capacity they were not able to sustain, gaining financing that otherwise would not have been attainable in the deflating market.
From a humble past, Lehman Brothers soon became a giant of the investment banking world. Whether from their huge highs or great lows, the company relied on lies to maintain their credibility. When external professionals are brought in by a company, a certain degree of expertise is assumed, and therefore a shifting of blame occurs from those in the company to these external parties. In many cases, auditors wear the blame for a fault of management when the auditors themselves fail to expose the fault. In the case of Lehman Brothers, the management were fully aware of their practices, but arguably, so were the auditors.
Although particular techniques may be legally allowed, the ethical and financial consequences of those techniques and exploitation of them may not always lead to favourable results. In the case of Lehman Brothers, the use of ultimately legal practices resulted in illegal problems in the form of undisclosed associated company share sales and falsely stating values of assets in liquid and non-liquid forms, which brings into question the core values of the company and its operations. Although it may not be fair that the auditor of companies are given such great responsibilities to expose illegitimate practices, given their role of questioning and analysing accounts, auditors will always be the first point of call when the big issues are exposed. In this case, EY was unable to do what their role details, and thus as a result, their capacity to prevent this failure will always be questioned.
As they didn't question the practices of management even when suspicious, did not push to gain further insight into the dealings of an investment giant, they failed to uphold their independent and questioning mind and prevent a bankruptcy that was ultimately preventable if caught in time. Ultimately, it was the fault of Lehman Brothers management who allowed these dealings to continue to operate when the results of their use of Repo 105 were questionable and ultimately unethical. However, the fall was felt by all parties involved.